SimpliSafe for faster police response. Now install our advanced system your way. Have a pro set it up or easily do it yourself. There's no safe like SimpliSafe.
I got this $1,000 camera for only $41 on DealDash.
DealDash.com. Online auctions since 2009. This PlayStation 5 sold for only 50 cents. This iPad Pro sold for less than $34. And this Nintendo Switch sold for less than $20.
I got this KitchenAid stand mixer for only $56.
I got this barbecue smoker for 26 bucks.
And shipping is always free.
Go to DealDash.com right now and see how much you can save.
Is your dog telling you they may have allergic itch? Apoquel is the #1 treatment for allergic itch that veterinarians have trusted for over 15 million dogs. And it starts working in just 4 hours.
Do not use in dogs with serious infections. May cause worsening of existing parasitic skin infestations or pre-existing cancers and serious infections. New neoplasias have been observed. Do not use in dogs less than 12 months old.
Ask your vet for Apoquel, now available in a tasty chewable.
Pause for the facts. Susie here is shopping for a used car, but she doesn't know that nearly half of them have been in an accident.
Interesting.
But Carfax.com shows how accidents impact price, so she doesn't have to overpay. Unpause. Shop the all-new Carfax.com.
Not exactly.
Sorry. Your cold is coming!
Thanks, Revere.
We really need to keep Zycam in the house.
Only if you want to shorten your cold. When you feel a cold coming, shorten it with Zycam.
So we're getting a lot of vote in, but there are still several states that are very important that are still too early to call: Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Georgia, states that we've been talking about a lot over recent weeks, and we just want to get all that data in.
So if you put it up on the board, we can show that we are closing in because there is a lead in a lot of these states, and you look at what's left out there. Pennsylvania, 86% in. Michigan's a little early in 52%, and then 80% in Wisconsin, 93% in Georgia. We're going to dig into Georgia in a little bit.
Yeah.
And in fact, let's throw it down to Madison Allworth in Atlanta. Madison, why haven't you made a call?
Brett, you know what? I've been getting that question from a lot of folks on the ground here because obviously obviously Fox has not called Georgia as a state, but this crowd, they celebrated at 10:30. That is when GOP chairman of Georgia, McCoon, got on the stage. He called it for Trump here in Georgia. Again, obviously Fox News has not called, but at this party, they very much has. So the party happened at 10:30. They've been cheering on as the other states have been called, but they've been waiting to hear why the Fox News decision desk has not made that decision yet. A lot of things that they're looking at that make them excited. There's certain counties like Baldwin, which is an area that has usually votes pretty Democratic. That's an area that actually is now favoring Trump. It's also predominantly black, and it has 2 universities there. So the fact that that area is going for the former president probably says something about the young black vote and the young vote in general. You probably heard some cheering. That's because they have us up on the screen behind, and they heard us on because the people here, guys, they're waiting for you to make the decision because, like I said, at 10:30, they called it for Trump, but obviously still waiting on Fox News to make that official decision. Brett, Martha?
Yeah, Madison, that area is really come around in recent years because they thought, the Harris campaign thought that they had a real shot in Georgia. We haven't called it yet, and there's a reason for that. They're just waiting for other vote to come in. But there's an excitement there that they're finally going to get over the top.
Oh, absolutely. There is an excitement here. And we've been talking to folks on the ground. The fact that Georgia will most likely flip for former President Trump again. They've said things like, enjoy this moment. We worked hard for this. Enjoy the fact that we're bringing safety back to America. They're very happy that their candidate is probably going to take home the win here. And, I've been talking to voters on the ground for days now, and I got a lot of people that said they waited and they took time to make their decision, and ultimately it came out to Trump for them. So a very dedicated voting base here. And in this room, we're at the GOP watch party. Obviously, they're quite excited.
Yeah. All right, Madison, thank you so much. By the way, there hasn't been a a lot of count in Georgia in the last 45 minutes or so. So we'll see where that stands.
We'll get a look at that and see where that's going. But what about Tennessee, which we called a really long time ago? I know everyone's wondering what is happening in Tennessee, but Pete Hegseth can answer that question for us because he is in Nashville. Did you hear, Pete, that we called Tennessee?
A while ago.
With 0% of precincts reporting, yes, which I very much appreciate. And so did the crowd here. My kind of state. But I'm telling you, we're having a lot of fun. We're at Kid Rock's in downtown Nashville on Broadway. And behind me, I've got a lot of intelligent, independent women behind me who are really fired up about the outcome tonight. I mean, you guys are like John Madden and Pat Summerall calling a football game. Every call you make, this crowd erupts, and when they erupt, it is based on a call you're making. And it's been fascinating to watch the energy in the room increase as the odds have moved in favor of Trump winning. And we've been talking to voters all night. This is what I love about election night. You guys know this. You've got pundits, you've got polls, and on election night, the people speak. And the people here are watching this may be a bright red state where their vote doesn't necessarily matter in the Electoral College, but they're watching their fellow Americans cast ballots on behalf of a candidate they believe in. So a lot of energy, and I think represents a lot of living rooms where maybe families of 4 or 5 are chanting USA as you guys are bringing in the returns. A lot of hope that the former president will be 47. It's just a matter of when it might be called. So thanks for indulging us here on Fox Nation. We just wrapped our coverage, and you guys are doing a phenomenal job.
Thank you, Pete. There's probably some good music down there, too.
Exactly. Say hi to everybody for us down there.
Maybe not New Edition, but something. Let's bring in our panel. Welcome back, Karl Rove, Jessica Tarloff, and Sandra Smith, and our regulars to the right. Sandra, great job looking into the Fox News voter analysis. What are you looking at?
All right, a few things. We haven't really talked about fracking in Pennsylvania, as we do wait on results to continue to come in there. Views on fracking. This is obviously key in this state, and we know that Kamala Harris flip-flopped on this issue. And so we're looking at how voters responded to that. 62% of Pennsylvania voters say that they favor expanding fracking in that state. Those voters backed Trump by more than 2 to 1. That was important to those voters. We'll see how that turns out. Another big difference, Michigan union voters, that vote is looking about the same with our Fox News voter analysis when we compare it to 2020. What might make the difference for Donald Trump in Michigan? White Catholics. Really interesting. He is at 61% of the vote with white Catholics. Harris is at 37%. Trump won white Catholics by 13 points. In 2020, he has run that up to 24-point margin.
Wow.
That's a big difference in Michigan.
Major difference.
That is a big difference.
And you wonder whether she should have gone to that dinner.
To the Al Smith dinner. She may be wondering that tonight. He showed up and gave his speech, and he has had a lot of support, mostly based on the pro-life issue. And
RFK Jr. was cutting ads for the Catholic vote in particular in battleground states.
As far as
I was just going to say, I think, when you look at the margins, at least at this moment in Wisconsin and Michigan, I think somewhere in Florida, RFK Jr. may be breathing a sigh of relief because he could have been a spoiler in those, but it looks, at least at this point, like the margin is big enough.
I do think we have to bring up the youth vote again. I mean, what a difference we are seeing from 4 years ago. Those voters under the age of 30 going for Harris over Trump by 8 points. 4 years ago, they favored Biden by 25 points. I mean, this is a huge difference. And we dive in at the state level, you are seeing what a difference that makes where he is outperforming what we saw earlier leading into this in the polls.
And how crazy is that the younger candidate, there was a lot of talk that a younger candidate would draw younger voters, but Joe Biden drew them in a larger numbers than she appears to have.
Karl, you've been on the back end of nights like this. You have been digging into the numbers. What board do you have for us now?
There you go.
Where we began. It all comes down to Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, if it goes for Trump, will settle the contest. It will be mathematically impossible for her to win.
So as you looked at tonight, what did you see as it unfolded?
As it unfolded, a little bit changed. Earlier in the evening, it looked like he was doing slightly better in the big city urban areas. And in some suburbs, like in Georgia, he was not doing as well. But tonight in Pennsylvania, for example, he's doing better in all 4 of the southeastern suburban counties, as well as doing better in the rural parts of the state. And it is an unusual coalition. It's inner city ethnics, it's Catholics who have been for decades the principal swing vote in America. Increasingly Hispanic voters among them, and he's knit together that coalition tonight, along with working class people in small towns and rural parts of the country.
If I could just add one data point from our FNVA on Pennsylvania on the white Catholics, it looks like Trump is running about 1 point, almost exactly the same as 2020. In fact, Trump's actually down 1 point with the white Catholics in Pennsylvania. So that's about the same. But Union voters, he's also seeing a down arrow there, about 3 points. He's running down below his 2020 levels.
So there's still hope for the blue wall for the Harris campaign. What are you hearing?
That there's still hope. Obviously, I didn't love to see the go take a nap and we'll get back to you in the morning about all of this, but we do have to keep in mind that the race in 2020 wasn't called for days, that Biden won Pennsylvania on Friday of that week and Wisconsin on Thursday, I think that it was. So we'll see. They think it's close, that there's vote coming in. There was some conversation over how much of remaining vote in Philadelphia existed, and there was an extra 120,000-ish votes that were out there that could go into Harris's column. 2 things, though, that I've been thinking about. One, and Dana knows this well, how much I love to throw out a good door-knocking stat, right? So 2,000 door knocks a minute for the Harris campaign. Does any of that stuff matter anymore? And we'll see how this pans out. She could win with the simple route through. She already, getting Nebraska second. But the Harris campaign ran a conventional campaign, right, where raising money, souls to the polls, that kind of stuff matters. Will that be the path going forward? The second thing is, if this night doesn't end up going in Harris's direction, and barring some big change, she will have underperformed Biden in 2020 in every single demographic except college-educated women. And even with college-educated women, it wasn't the overwhelming win that we thought it was going to be, or that was projected in some of these very prominent surveys. And when you think about the fact that there were some people, I didn't think we were going to win Iowa, but that we had seen surveys where he was only up 5 in Kansas or up 3 in Ohio. It's going to take a lot of refocusing to understand really what happened here. And it doesn't seem like it was one decision that the Harris campaign did. I'm sure if she loses Pennsylvania, there'll be a lot of Josh Shapiro discussion. This feels much bigger than any decision about having him on the ticket or going to the Al Smith dinner.
So, Carl, when Jessica just brought up a potential for 150,000 votes in Philadelphia County, I saw your head kind of swing around. Does that not make sense to you?
Well, no. I mean, we're pretty good at saying 89% of the vote is in, or 95% of the vote is in, and that not turning out to be, that turns out to be accurate. It's very rare. I can't imagine in one instance where we've said, where we've looked at a number and seen 90% of the vote in or 85% of the vote in, and that turned out to be grossly off. I will say this, though. I do want to follow up on one thing. Think about all that she had to face. This is an abysmal number when it comes to the approval of the sitting president. No party has elected a president when their sitting incumbent had as low a job approval as this president had. Take a look at the right direction, wrong track. I mean, 2/3 of the American people say the country's going in the wrong direction, and she represents the party in power. To me, it's it's amazing that she's come as close as she has, given that
party of the administration.
Yeah, she was the vice president in a very unpopular administration, and yet tonight, again, Britt made the point earlier. The Electoral College will serve the purpose of translating a relatively small difference between these two people. Look at Pennsylvania, 50.9 to 48.1. And yet at the end of the day, a series of victories that are 1 and 2 and 3 points are going to generate a commanding number in the Electoral College that will help the new president again, if it all goes like it looks like it's going, to be more effective in office.
Harold Ford, are there going to be Biden people that say he could have been better? Like
Biden? I think it's hard to make that case for some of the reasons, and I think Britta and Carl have made the point. I think three things. I listened to Sandra's data. I'm curious, as we get a day or so away from this, as we look at what happened with the performance amongst women for her. Did she win African American women, Hispanic women, white women at a bigger rate? Were there disparities between the two? And then the race thing for me, I'm going to be curious also to get more. We heard the numbers around Hispanic voters, but even black voters, where that might be. And interestingly, Carl, normally you see a race where in the country where the cultural issues impact, as you were talking about, the suburban areas, in some places he wasn't performing, and you see the suburban areas in Pennsylvania and elsewhere where the economic issues, fracking, and the livelihoods of those communities were at stake. Then you have the cultural issues. I think the issue around transgender rights was a bigger issue than Democrats really understand what it meant. I mean, what it meant for girls playing sports. I'm a father of a son and a daughter, what it means if little boys are playing and little girls' sports and going into bathrooms. I don't think we've not gotten our head fully around that issue. So there'll be a lot of reckoning, and to Jessica's point, and I think a lot of reimagining whom we are as a party, which I think will be good for the party if indeed the trend continues where it is this evening.
I'm not going to belabor this point, but for a candidate who, Democrats who really were aggressive, and a media that echoed that, called him racist and a Nazi, and yet today to see the black vote and the Hispanic vote going exponentially more than it did before is really quite something. I mean, it's just startling, Britt.
Well, it's a further sign of the decline of the influence of the mainstream media, which tends to take its cues, to say the very least, from the Democrats, and to repeat with serious faces the charges he made and the sometimes outlandish claims that he has made about Donald Trump.
We could be getting ready for a call here soon. We're going to stay here, and we're going to go to Bill Hemmer, because you're looking at Pennsylvania, Bill. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, sorry, they were talking to me. Go ahead. What's
How
that?
come I always talk to you when they're talking to you?
Well, because there's a lot to be said over here.
All right.
In this
So
figure. Go ahead.
Pennsylvania we're still looking at, but
Yeah.
we're also looking at the national popular vote,
Yeah.
which he's currently leading.
Yeah. One thing I was looking at here. Okay, this is Philadelphia.
In front of them.
This is 2016. This is Trump's margin in Philadelphia, 15.5. Okay. Then he comes back 4 years later. Philadelphia. That's where I mean, it's a Republican running in a blue part of the state. He's just shy of 18. Okay. So where is he tonight? He's almost at 21. Okay. So hold on that moment here. Okay. There's a reason for this.
Wow, that was a nice move.
Yeah, like that? You caught me off guard. So let's go ahead and look at the vote difference for Pennsylvania. Some things I want to show you right now. You know, we talked about this Democratic march over here, and really, when we talk about the blue wall, here's where we stand right now, okay? Got to reach higher than that. Trump's just shy of 3 percentage points, now ticking down to 2.7. That's a live number that continues to come in. Go ahead and clear this.
Needed that. Needed it.
Kevin Wyden out there, Mitt. Let's look at the vote margin for Pennsylvania. I'm going to show you the blue wall and how, you know, if it's moved every direction for the past 3 decades, is it about to move in the same direction yet again? Right? There's 3 counties here in Philadelphia that really tell a story. These are your flipper counties, all right? Look at Northampton. All right? Northampton is above Philadelphia. Trump's leading in Northampton. That flip for Biden, it's flipped back to Trump by about 5 points. Look at the other end of the state in Erie. Erie's one of these bellwethers as well. Kamala Harris has been leading there most of the night, and just about 30 minutes ago, Erie flipped. In Centre County, right smack dab in the middle of that T that you normally get in Pennsylvania, Centre County has always been the exception. It's been blue. That's where Penn State University is located, et cetera. Right. That is another indication about how well Trump has done in Pennsylvania thus far tonight. There's a real good chance he flips all those and maybe more shortly. So I want to show you that. We'll go ahead and clear it and give it back to you guys, okay?
Well, It's really interesting.
you, Bill.
We've got some action because we're hearing the former president is going to his party in West Palm, but we're also seeing Cedric Richmond in Harris Walz's campaign co-chair speaking at the Harris Watch party. Let's listen.
Votes to count. We still have states that have not been called yet. We will continue overnight to fight to make sure that every vote is counted, that every voice has spoken. So you won't hear from the Vice President tonight, but you will hear from her tomorrow. She will be back here tomorrow to address not only the HU family, not only to address her supporters, but to address the nation. So thank you. We believe in you. May God bless you. May God keep you. And go HU and go Harris. Thank you all.
Cedric Richmond, the campaign co-chair, and it's hard to ignore the fact that this is the mirror image of 2016 when John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign chair, came out around the same time of night and said, you know, we're still counting votes and you won't hear from her tonight, you'll hear from her tomorrow.
Which is stunning. Go HU, by the way, is Howard University. That's where the campaign headquarters party is. But the vote is still going. They're not stopping. The counting is still continuing in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Arizona, in Nevada. So, you know, as you start getting to a decision here, and we could be getting close to a decision, we'll see where we are in Georgia. There have been other calls for Georgia. We are now in Michigan. Bill Hemmer, seeing some movement.
Up over 6 points, 6.3 now. The margin's getting larger for Trump here. Raw vote count is 210,000. So if you start doing some math and you think like what's outstanding in Detroit, Wayne County, which is a lot, it's a sizable amount of votes out there. But whether or not there's enough votes in Wayne, once they announce and release, whether or not it's enough to overcome his lead right now.
What about Kent County? He has closed 3 campaigns in Grand Rapids, and he just closed this one there last night.
Yeah, Kent County has been stubborn for Donald Trump. I think he would probably confess that. This was a flipper from 2020 when Joe Biden took it from the Trump team. Right now in Kent County, she's got a pretty comfortable lead here, about 10 points. It's a remarkable thing when you think about it. You know, the Gerald Ford Museum is there, and we talked about 5 hours ago about the realignment of America in the South, primarily like in North Carolina and Georgia and perhaps parts of Florida. You don't think about a realignment in Michigan necessarily, but this has been an area that Donald Trump wanted to win. There's a reason why he started his tradition in 2016 by concluding his campaign in Kent County, Grand Rapids. He did it again in 2020 in a losing effort. He did it again just this past weekend, Monday night at midnight, right? He rolled into, he rolled into Florida at 5:30 in the morning. That was yesterday morning. No, it wasn't.
Use your hands.
It was this morning, wasn't it?
What are you doing?
Right, because it was Wednesday, right? Okay, you follow me on the calendar? Okay, yeah, okay. But it's been stubborn. It appears that it will stick that way as well. Kent County and Grand Rapids will stay in the blue column. It's a changing area, you know, this west coast of Michigan. But what I'm seeing right now, even though you'll have just about 60% of the vote in, I'm seeing a lot of red lining up and down Lake Michigan. And for a while, you know, that had changed. It seemed to be shifting a little bit. There's a county right here called Muskegon, beautiful part of the world. And that had seemed to be drifting in the Democratic column as well. But Trump's got a firm grip on it now, 16 points. And I'll just go west of Muskegon, or sorry, south of Muskegon, west of Grand Rapids, is Ottawa County there. Like for years, this was like a Republican bastion. Trump kept it that way in 2020, winning by 21.5 points. In 2016, in Ottawa specifically, you ran away with it at 30 points. And so it will stay that way tonight. And let me just come out to real-time data here and let you know where we are statewide. You've got some vote out there, but you see this margin here yet again. Just as I'm talking here, guys, it's ticking higher. 210,967, 6.3 percentage point lead in Michigan. I'm not going to say it because it's not my job, but it looks like the blue wall could stay intact yet again for another year where it votes in unison with the winning party who takes the White House that year.
Since 1988, that has held.
I think we're getting ready for a call.
I think we are too. Are we?
Fox News can now project that the state of Georgia will go to former President Donald Trump. This was a really hard-fought battle. If you think about Georgia loses it last time to President Biden by 11,779 votes. For some reason, that number sticks in my mind. And this is a big win. He went there, campaigned there, and so did Vice President Harris numerous times, thinking that Georgia could stay in the Democratic column.
You know, he had a difficult relationship with Governor Brian Kemp. If you remember, 4 years ago, after losing Georgia, they tried to salvage 2 Senate races in Georgia. A month later, special elections. That didn't go well either. So this is a very big win for former President Trump to, you know, have this redemption in Georgia tonight.
So now we are at Electoral College vote at 248 for Trump and 216 for Harris. We have a panel. We're welcoming in Darren Shaw, a member of the Fox News Decision Desk. Welcome in Juan Williams as well, along with Karl Rove. Darren, we got you out here. We were going to say, what happened? Are we calling Georgia? And then you push the button.
Are you here to tell us that we were right when we said you called Georgia?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I thought you were going to come down here to grill me, and we preempted that.
What else are we going to call?
You guys called Georgia in the nick of time for you, Darren.
That's exactly right.
While we have you, how do you see this night? And was it like you thought going in? And as you look at the blue wall there?
Well, I think 2 things. This is an election. This is unprecedented by my standards because the more data I saw, the more possibilities seemed to unfold. There was stuff a couple weeks ago I didn't think could happen. I didn't think Trump could win, let's say, the national vote. I'm not saying he's going to, but that was something that nobody thought could happen. They thought he was capped at 47, 48%. That's a possibility. We had a lot of conversations about whether these, swing states were going to move together or whether they were going to sort of crack and each move separately. There's a possibility tonight that, I didn't think this would happen earlier in the afternoon, but that he could sweep all of them. That's not a prediction, but it's something that's within the realm of possibility with the data we've seen.
You're saying blue wall turns into a red wall?
It's possible. And that wasn't something anybody was talking about. People talked about Michigan, in particular, as being the toughest state for Trump to crack. Now, Bill's shown the data recently. We've been looking at it for hours. Michigan's looking very difficult for her right now.
All these toss-up states had been within a point or 2. So is there any way to look at what you see now and say this could be a win in a larger percentage than that? I mean, a lot of these states are still close, but...
Right. What we're looking at right now, we have sort of model data, and we're looking to reach a certain level of statistical significance to make a call. We're also looking at what we call the outstanding vote. And so, for instance, in the case of Georgia, we were modeling about 835,000 outstanding votes. A lion's share of them were coming from suburban Atlanta. She needed to hit about 55, 56%. She was getting about 45%. And at a certain level, that becomes a statistical impossibility. The more data you get, the less room she has to actually grow or do better than she's been performing. And so that sort of triggered the call in Georgia. We're not quite there yet in the other states, but this may not be an election where we need to be here till Thursday or Friday.
Right. And so when they say go home, relax, you're saying maybe not yet.
We'll see if they, continue to count. Arizona and Nevada have been particularly stubborn about that. We understand in Nevada they don't allow any counting until the last vote has been cast, which is, we think, why we're getting basically nothing from Nevada so far. But Arizona, it's coming in sort of droves. It's a close race there. Wisconsin and Michigan. Michigan seems to be counting there like 54, 55%. Wisconsin at 2 a.m. in 2020 had counted 99% of the votes. So we think there's a chance we might have enough data in Wisconsin, maybe Michigan. So we may have some resolution more quickly than we had thought.
So in Pennsylvania, Sean talked about this earlier, the early vote and what that looked like and what she would have to do day of in Philadelphia and those counties right around there. Is it possible that that's still out there and it's possible to do?
Well, it seems to be a probability diminishing by the hour. I think this is something from the Georgia data, but we've also seen it in Pennsylvania. Young African-American men did not come home. Part of the African-American vote came home to her. but a lot of it didn't, and there's a gender gap there. And the Georgia, I think, I have to run the numbers, and I'm not going to lay this at the feet of any demographic group in particular, but she really did seem to underachieve amongst African-American males, especially young African-American males.
I mean, it just makes me think about Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, the former president, and the very strong appeals that they made. Michelle Obama said, you know, don't let your husband or boyfriend's rage dictate your vote. President Obama talked about bringing out the brothers and scolding them. That does not seem to have been a strategy that worked.
Darren, did the Fox News voter analysis track with what you saw with raw vote as you went around the states? Yes.
You know, there were a couple. What we're doing early on is we get this early vote from Indiana and Kentucky. It allows us to kind of figure out, is the FNVA performing consistent with the data? There were a couple states where Trump overperformed a bit. Florida was one. We were a little concerned that we might be overestimating Trump's performance in rural areas. But the more data we got, the more that didn't seem to be the case. It seemed like he was basically hitting what we thought he would hit.
I mean, we've got the brain here. Did anybody else have a question for Darren? Brett?
I'm curious about immigration and what you've seen in terms of how much that played into the votes in some of these states.
Well, I think the one thing we can say is that it didn't repel people. In particular, there was some talk about the Hispanic vote coming home over the issue of immigration. That did not seem to happen much at all. You know, the FNVA suggested, I think it was 40% was Trump's performance amongst Latinos. That ended up being, I think, within 13 or 14 points of Harris's. I mean, if you showed me data before the election and said, you know, that he's going to get 15% of the African-American vote, 40% of the Hispanic vote, I'd say that's an awfully tough night for a Democrat to win an election in.
There's some reporting that Trump has won Erie County, Pennsylvania. Is that square with anything you understand?
I think that's. I think it was on sort of a knife's edge. I don't know if Bill's got the latest data, but
it was a moment ago here.
It's part of her hope, right?
Went back to the Trump team, and right now, currently, just to keep you guys up to date, he leads it by a point in 1.4, which is a little less than 2,000 raw votes.
And it's 99%
left out. How much?
Yeah.
It's 99% in, or 90? What did you say?
90. Statewide, 90%. Darren, I got a question for you. When you think about the blue wall in the upper Midwest, when we were at the convention in Milwaukee in July, it ended on a Thursday. On a Friday, we had that national computer glitch, and all the airports were shut down. So all the delegates and all the journalists and all the campaign folks were stranded at the airport in Milwaukee. And I was still thinking at the time about, you know, why did I just see Kid Rock? And why did I see Hulk Hogan? And why did I see Dana White? And I went to the campaign, and I said, what's going on there? Because it was men. It was white men. And they said, we notice in the upper Midwest, at the time they were thinking about Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio to a lesser degree, and Pennsylvania. That's what they were thinking about. And they said, we noticed that there was a certain percentage of white men who voted in 2016. They sat out 2020, and we're trying to win them back. Is there evidence that those white males in those upper Midwest states did that tonight?
There was sort of a rule of thumb we were adopting that, and we spoke about this a little bit earlier in conversation with y'all, but that, you know, the gender gap is a double-edged sword. Gender gap can help or hurt depending upon, you know, the absolute level of support. We were looking at 55%. In other words, if Trump was hitting 55% with men, that was a good sign. If Harris was hitting 55% with women, that was a good sign. And in the upper Midwest states, he was getting closer to that sort of magic number than she was. So what they call it the bro strategy or whatever, it seems to have paid some dividends up there. I mean, we're still waiting, but, you know, it's looking pretty good for him.
So we can definitively say that the poll that we don't talk about in Iowa was kind of off. The Des Moines Register poll.
I love Ann Seltzer. She's a giant and a pioneer in our field. I think, you know, what we were looking at, ironically, was not so much the top line in that race, but what Seltzer had said was that senior women were breaking away from Trump over the abortion issue. And I think our friend Sean Trende had a really good observation where he said that may be true, but it may not help Harris, because that's something that could occur in Iowa where abortion was a hot issue, but might not occur nationally in other states where abortion wasn't as salient.
We have to let you go, but really quickly, what's happening in Minnesota?
That's what I was going to ask, exact question.
Minnesota, why is that still?
They have done what sometimes they do in states. They've stopped counting votes.
Really?
And we're kind of close
For all
to.
we've been through with that.
After all we've been through?
We're at a level where we're close to statistical significance, but it's not quite there yet, and there are
Is
still.
Tim Walz in charge of that?
Yeah, well,
there you go.
Rumor has it.
We have to let you go because you
Wow.
have some more data crunching to do.
I do.
We appreciate you coming
Thank you,
by.
Darren.
Thanks,
It really
Darren.
does
Good
help
job,
a
Darren.
lot.
For coming
Good job.
by.
Great
Very
job.
nice to see you guys. Thank you.
Let's check in with Aisha Hosni at the
Let's
Trump
do that.
campaign headquarters. Aisha?
Hey, you guys. Well, all signs here are pointing to perhaps imminent remarks from the former president shortly. The biggest debt giveaway was a short while ago. Somebody went onto the stage right behind me and put up the glass for the teleprompter, so perhaps somebody will be speaking to the crowd here shortly, and that might be the former president. We've got eyes outside, our security details outside watching to see if the motorcade arrives from Mar-a-Lago. I did get a video from someone at the Mar-a-Lago party a short while ago, and folks there were jubilant and cheering and clapping. They had Fox News on the screen. They were watching as we were calling states and more races for the former president. The excitement here is climbing every minute, and people here are anxiously awaiting to see if the former president shows up here tonight and perhaps gives a victory speech. Back to you.
Oh, Aisha, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Cough drop?
We'll head back there. If the former President Trump is about to take the stand and speak there. So we're going to keep a close eye on that. 1 a.m. in New York. Polls have just closed in Alaska. The Fox News decision desk says it is too early to call. Trump has a lead in our Fox News voter analysis, so we will get you back to Alaska when we have a little more data to report there.
And there you see 248 to 216, the Electoral College map. We are waiting on the blue wall, which could be a red wall. You just heard from Darren Shaw, and I think that data and the way he laid it out there and their decision making really kind of lifts the curtain to how these guys operate based on our Fox News voter analysis, which again was 120,000 voters, that a rolling poll, and then the raw vote total that they came in. Alex Hoff is in Pennsylvania. We'll check in on the ground there. Alexandria.
Yeah.
to report there. And then you see the 248.
Hey, good to be with you. Yeah, the crowd here in Bucks County, they are excited by some trends they are seeing, not necessarily expecting to result tonight. Pennsylvania's results and the count is historically slow. It took 4 days in 2020, but the Commonwealth Secretary does believe that it's going to be faster this time. New technology, more training will come into all this. Now, looking at Philadelphia, both the Trump and the Harris campaigns, they're saying they're outperforming there, but Team Trump feels that this could be good news for them because there are pockets of support inside of South Philadelphia, Northeast Philadelphia, and there is a saying that goes that Republicans can gauge how well they are doing in the state by how much they are losing Philadelphia by. Simply, it cuts into the margins that Democrats need. And here in Bucks County, they're seeing themselves on the screen right now. It means a lot. If he were to win this county, Bucks County, I mean, that would be the first time a Republican presidential candidate has taken this county since 1988. And these suburbs of Philadelphia, this is what pushed Biden over the edge in 2020. Harris needs to do well in these counties if she stands to have a chance of taking this state, guys. Brett, Martha?
Alex, thank you. So let's go to Bill and see, what are you cooking up over there, Bill?
You know, I was just looking at New York. You know, we heard so much about MSG and the insult comic about the Puerto Rican joke. And, you know, Trump, you know, New York's his home, right? I mean, now living in Florida, Mar-a-Lago, but just look at this. I'm going to go ahead and use the slide bar and just, okay, 8 years ago when he's running against Hillary Clinton, this is his margin in New York, all right? 37.5 compared to almost 59 for Hillary Clinton. And then against Joe Biden, it was what? Was it? Oh my gosh! It was 0.3 of a point. All right, and now we come to 2020 and see the numbers on the board here. That's a pretty decent performance, and we're just getting some insight here in the New York City. He did well over 40% of the vote here in New York as well. One thing I was checking out here, guys, in This is the number, right? Path to 270. I guess in theory right now, if you were to close out, you're at 248. If you were to close out Pennsylvania, and even though Alaska has ranked choice voting, which could take a while to post a number here, nonetheless, that would put him right at the number at 270. So even around the blue wall, that's possible too. That goes back to the argument that we've been talking about for some time now, that Trump had more paths to the Oval Office than Harris did. Let's go check on Pennsylvania one more time here, and we'll see. Okay, it's holding steady at 3.5. 90% of the estimated vote out there, and now reporting here. In Michigan, the blue wall, 6.3, so that number is stuck a little bit here. Estimated somewhat, maybe 40% of the vote still missing there in Michigan and Wisconsin. Maybe we get some more numbers in. It got 85% of the vote in here, and Trump's holding on to this 4.2 advantage in Wisconsin. And Wisconsin, they take a lot of pride in what they do. They want to get the vote out quickly. Maybe Milwaukee notwithstanding, but the rest of the state, that's their idea. So we could get that in maybe a little more as we go into what, the 2 a.m. hour? Are we going to 2 a.m. or 3? What are we doing here? Arizona sticking here at 0.7. What's that?
Just keep going.
Okay, you got it. This is Nevada, so we're starting to get our first numbers in from Nevada. For any of the nerds and geeks out there that have been deep in the weeds about the early voting, you've been watching Nevada. And Nevada's been a pretty good marker there for Republicans. This is a quick count here now. It's saying 75% of the vote is in, and Trump's got a firm lead at 3.4 points, roughly, just a tad under 35,000 votes. Clark County, Las Vegas, 70% of the votes in the Silver State here all come from Nevada. Let's see what's happening right now. Okay, Harris. Just a tick over 50.2 with 80%. I want to go comparison's sake, 8 years ago. Why not, right? In Nevada, I don't know what this number is. We'll find out together, okay? So Hillary Clinton did 2 points better than Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden, okay, did even better, 3.5 over what Kamala Harris is putting up right now. So it appears if you're in the Trump camp, that's a pretty good number right now, just shy of 51% in Nevada early on. Here's Karl Rove's favorite place in the world. This is Washoe County, right, Karl? Right now, a point, it's close, right? 0.2 points. What happened with Biden? Was it close? Yeah, pretty close, but Biden won the county. So in all likelihood, Trump's got a chance to flip this if it holds up right now. Super slim and more vote to come in. But Nevada is looking good too. And now you start to wonder, how high does this number go on the Electoral College?
Yeah, New York Times Needle is now at greater than 95% and likely to win the popular vote is what they have. Well, let's check in. Let's go out to Vegas. Jeff Paul is live in Las Vegas. Jeff, what's happening?
Well, a lot of excitement here and optimism at the Sam Brown watch party. He is, of course, the Republican candidate trying to unseat the Democratic incumbent Senator Jackie Rosen. And just a few moments ago, when Bill was talking about Nevada, you heard a lot of cheers here from the crowd at the Sam Brown watch party, just knowing some of those initial numbers. It took nearly 3 hours to finally get some of those numbers. We're hoping to get another batch in the coming hours, but Nevada has an interesting law where it's, you can vote right up until the 7 o'clock hour, and if you're in line, they'll let you vote. And in order to release those results, they wait until the very last person in line votes. That person, it took 2 hours and 48 minutes, so still a very long night ahead of us. But for the folks here at the Sam Brown watch party, a lot of optimism in the air.
All right, Jeff Paul in Las Vegas. Jeff, thanks.
So our panel is still with us, and we have some new folks that are here as well. Kevin McCarthy is joining us. Karl Rove is back. Juan Williams is here. Great to have all of you with us. Kevin McCarthy, let me start with you. Give us an update on what your overall take on the night so far, and then maybe drill down on some of what you're seeing in these House situations as well.
The Senate Republicans did an extraordinary job. They surpassed all expectations. President Trump is on his way. And I think President Trump is going to help the Republicans hold the House, but it's going to be very narrow, maybe even narrower than we have now.
But you think they could do it?
Maybe
Yeah, if
even
you look
narrower
at
than you have now, you said.
Yeah, it may be exactly the same or maybe smaller. Look at the two seats I said at the very beginning of the night. Watch Pennsylvania 7 and Pennsylvania 8. I think we're going to pick those both up. You said North Carolina 1. We're probably going to lose that by 1 point. She did an extraordinary job.
Wow.
Then you look at Maine. We're ahead there. But we have some incumbents that have fallen in New York. California's just in now, but don't read those numbers yet because it's just the first part coming in. We're going to have to wait some time to see where we're there. Arizona, we've got a couple incumbents in trouble. Bacon's coming back in Omaha, maybe there. If we hold the House, if this is a trifecta, the credit goes to President Trump. But it also fundamentally means something different. You can do reconciliation when it comes to tax reform. So you don't need 60 votes in the Senate. Having the Senate as large as he is, he's going to get the cabinet that he wants. The other thing that's going to happen is you're not going to have a Hakeem Jeffries that's going to try to impeach him every single week. So America is going to see ability to govern. And if Republicans take this moment in time to not play games and focus on the issues, they can grow it the next time. Otherwise, it's going to be very competitive in 2 years.
But Juan Williams, if it's as big as we think it could be, we obviously haven't made these calls yet, but it's trending that way, and the pathway for her to win is getting narrower and narrower. Isn't it not a mandate? And Hakeem Jeffries and the thought of impeaching with what we're seeing tonight seems like wouldn't be the right move.
Well, I think the Democrats are, well, dispirited at this moment, and I think that the likelihood, as we pointed out, is that Trump will be the president. And I think that, for me, talking to people like Darren and political professionals around, no one anticipated the size of this mandate, as you call it. I think that there is even recriminations now among Democrats as to Biden and whether Biden should have dropped out earlier or Biden should have stayed. Would a white male have done better? Obviously, Trump has defeated 2 women and now a black woman. So there's all of these questions. But to my mind, it seems to me incredible that a guy who led an insurrection against the United States government is potentially now, like a phoenix, going back into the Oval Office. It's unbelievable.
Well, you have to consider the fact, Juan, that a lot of people didn't think that was an insurrection. They thought it was a riot, but not an insurrection. And had they thought it was really an insurrection, I don't think he could have won.
Well, I don't know.
The exaggerations about that day.
Well, I'm not exaggerating.
About the alleged threat to democracy is a piece of what happened tonight is.
Well, I don't think so. I think, again, I'm giving you my perspective.
Yeah. And I'm giving you mine.
Right. So I listened to you as my friend. But I'm going to tell you what I saw was not only a riot in terms of the violence, but a direct action intended to stop certification of a presidential election.
Understood. And we've talked a lot about it.
That's why I said that.
And we've talked a lot about it. And the campaign,
very clearly. I'm not trying to hype anything.
The campaign ran a lot of ads about it, talked a lot about it, and more, half the country now, Juan is going to say, that is not what I care about. I care about my economy. I care about immigration.
No, see, that's where we differ. I'm not sold on this idea that, it was the cost of eggs. I worry that it was, I'm not voting for this woman, or I'm not voting for this black woman.
No, that's not what we see in our data.
Well, here's the thing. Where do you see that? Because a moment ago, Darren was out here and he said, in fact, not only did the bro strategy work, and the bro strategy largely worked along the lines of white men, but that the bro strategy also had some impact in terms of Latino and black men who came along and gave higher percentages.
All right, Carl, weigh in.
I just want to make one more point with Juan. I spoke to Jack Brewer this week, and here's what he said if Trump wins. He said he won because black men felt that Democrats and elites put immigrants before us. Your thoughts on that?
I just think that that's possible. I don't know that for a fact. I think there are tensions between racial groups, and people might feel that. Obviously, you can exploit those tensions, and you can exacerbate them to the point where you can politically benefit from it. Do I think that's the reason he won? No. I think the reason he won is you look at that bro strategy and the white male turnout and white grievance politics that he has used to great success in this country.
I think he's trailing among trailing his prior 2020 numbers with whites.
Well, you know what? I think that the
Increased Hispanics and black males.
Yeah.
Look, it's not sufficient to make up. It's not sufficient to have this kind of night.
Look, I just think it is extremely odd to suggest that black men are somehow prejudiced because they vote for a white candidate who says, I want to make certain that everybody has an opportunity to succeed in our great economy. I want you to be more prosperous, and I will do things that will make it possible for you to make a better life. That is an appeal to their best instincts. He did not go out and say, vote for me because I'm not a woman. Don't go vote for me because I'm a white man. That would not have attracted those votes. They got attracted to him because they thought he was a strong, effective leader, and they thought he would do something about the issues they cared the most about, which is an economy in which they think they get the short stick, inflation, which has decimated their purchasing power, and illegal immigration, which has affected their communities deeply. And to suggest that somehow black men are racist because they supported a white man is just too far, Juan.
You're distorting my comments, but let me just say to you,
I followed your comment to its logical conclusion.
Carl, hold on. We're not saying most black men did not vote for Donald Trump. So I never said anything like that. That's just not true.
Oh, you suggested it's only
I'm saying
quarter
to you,
of black
no,
men.
I'm saying to you that in terms of this bro strategy for white males, the whole notion of I'm bad, I talk about women in the most disparaging way. There's some men who just said, you know what, I get into, I want to be in on that. I want to be a badass guy. And I think they like Trump's image and the caricature he portrays.
I think they supported him in spite of that, not because of it.
Harold Ford Jr.
Because we offered to make their life better.
Harold Ford Jr.
Look, I tend to agree with Juan about January 6th. I'm surprised by the fact that the country got over that as quickly as it seemingly did, which speaks to the political comeback. I've said here earlier, I think that the fact that some of these issues around the economy and the border were not addressed more forthrightly, I think had an impact. That being said, we're going to have some analysis around this and around whether or not the driving up support amongst men, what was behind that, how did it work, did the gender gap with women, did black women, white women, Hispanic women, we still don't know those numbers. We'll have an opportunity to dig into some of those things, but I don't interpret what Juan is saying any more than that.
All right, more to talk about here.
There's a lot more coming up as election night moves on at 1:15 on the East Coast. We continue to get more vote in. We will be able to make some calls when that vote is in full. Our coverage continues next. Stay with us.
Salah!
Starting at 5 a.m., Lawrence, Steve, Ainsley, and Brian bring us all the latest after Election Day on a special Fox and Friends. Today.
This is our legacy. I won't let anyone take it.
The epic return of Yellowstone.
I can see it now. I know what to do.
There is no morality. This is war.
We fight here, or we die here.
Oh, this is gonna be fun. It's been pretty fun so far.
Yellowstone. Watch on Paramount Network this week.
What are you doing?
Can you believe this, man?
Everyone's getting that new Simply Safe outdoor monitoring. Now they can help prevent crime before it even happens.
How do we compete with AI-powered outdoor cameras that alert live agents of an intruder?
Stop. This is Simply Safe. Police are on the way.
Whoa! I didn't even see those guys.
So what about us now?
Luckily, I'm pretty adorable. There's no safe like Simply Safe.
DealDash.com. Online auctions since 2009. This PlayStation 5 sold for only 50 cents. This iPad Pro sold for less than $34. And this Nintendo Switch sold for less than $20. Go to DealDash.com and see how much you can save.
Reminder, bent finger appointment.
I don't want to wait or have surgery for my Dupuytren's contraction. I want a non-surgical treatment.
And if non-surgical treatment isn't offered,
I'll get a second opinion.
Take charge of your treatment. If you can't lay your hand flat, visit findahandspecialist.com to get started.
I didn't have to spend my life trying to find my calling. Mine found me at an early age. It was just a matter of how good I could get and how far I would go.
At Ram, our calling is to build trucks. So when you find your calling, nothing can stop you from answering it.
Right now during Ram Power Days, get $4,000 cash allowance on the purchase of most 2025 Ram 1500 trucks. Don't miss Ram Power Days. Hurry in today.
Enjoy your risk-free trial.
Hello? Can you hear me?
You sure can.
Everybody hear me?
I sure can.
Do you hear me?
I sure can.
So, can you hear well?
Sure can.
Hear well, feel well. From your first appointment, try our new nearly invisible solution risk-free. Call 1-800-234-7090 now.
All right, we are back, and that is the jubilant scene. Everybody seems pretty happy at Trump headquarters, and what we're seeing is movement from the Mar-a-Lago Trump group, including former President Trump, who is in a very good position to be the next president this evening as well, is heading over to the Trump headquarters, where there are a few thousand people who have gathered for this evening. So we'll keep a close eye on that. Obviously, when he shows up there, we will take you there live.
Well, those guys had two Make America Great hats on.
I saw someone with a
front,
really large
back.
one. Yeah.
As we look now at what we have, Pennsylvania. Is this a call, ladies and gentlemen? We are now projecting that Donald J. Trump will win the state of Pennsylvania. Former President Donald J. Trump will win the state of Pennsylvania, and thereby he is on his way to becoming the 47th president of the United States. With this, the path for Vice President Harris has narrowed, and there's really no path going forward. It's vanished. This is historic. Everything was about Pennsylvania. Everything from the beginning was about Pennsylvania. Now, former President Trump will win the state of Pennsylvania, and we can make that call, the 19 electoral votes. That puts him at 267, not officially over the 270, but the path that it takes to get to 270, he is well on his way to becoming the 47th president of the United States in what is going to be the biggest political phoenix from the ashes story that we have ever seen, ever. I mean, I'm going to say it's more than Grover Cleveland in
1892.
Yeah, I don't think that Grover Cleveland was not the subject of a Russia investigation, 2 impeachments, 2 assassination attempts.
Indictments.
They have indictments, 91 indictments, convictions, and there is almost nothing that hasn't been thrown at this former president, and his tenacity in wanting to go back and run again, which he announced immediately after he lost in 2020. This is a huge historic moment in the United States of America as the former President Trump is closing in with just a few electoral votes away now from clinching 270 as Pennsylvania is called for Donald Trump.
We're looking live, 1:21 a.m. in the morning at Trump headquarters. The cheers coming up. We're told the former president is there, as well as J.D. Vance, Senator J.D. Vance. They are getting ready to hear from former President Donald Trump. Again, at 267, not there yet, but looking at where that vote is in Wisconsin, where the vote is in Michigan, where the vote is in Nevada and in Arizona. There is no path, Brit Hume, for Vice President Harris, and just 30,000 feet, what this means.
Well, I'm old enough to remember when Richard Nixon was declared dead in 1962. Remember the famous speech he said, "You don't have Nixon to kick around anymore." No one could imagine after that failed race for governor that he could have come back in 1968 and been elected president. That was a hell of a comeback. This, to my eye, was a man who was faced with many more slings and arrows than Nixon had been at that time, hated though he was by the Democrats. This surmounts that. This is an extraordinary comeback.
Dana.
He campaigned so energetically, ruthlessly, fiercely, and with more joy than Kamala Harris. And it was so clear that Joe Biden was not going to be able to go the distance. If Joe Biden were still on the ticket tonight, who knows what tonight might have even looked like. That he has been able to accomplish this, it is nothing short of astonishing and amazing. And also, I think about Susie Wiles, who's his campaign manager, very quiet, does not like the limelight. Chris LaCivita, who works on it. All of those people who worked so hard and stuck by Trump, no matter what was said about him, they were called every name in the book, including Hitler and Nazis, and they came through. The other thing that's on my mind is, you know, last night at her closing rally, Oprah Winfrey said that if Donald Trump is elected again, basically you can just write America off, like America's just going to fall apart. That's obviously not true, although I'll be surprised tomorrow if there's a big line at JFK of Hollywood celebrities leaving the country, as I said they were going to. This is the greatest country, and there will be so many opportunities for lots of deal making. I think President Trump will be in the mood, but he also has a huge to-do list. Biden and Harris have left a mess. His closing argument was, she broke it, I will fix it. And she talked about having a to-do list. He's got a big to-do list, but he thrives on it. And you saw that through the whole campaign.
He is, I think, enthusiastic about doing the job of being President, Harold, and it is just an absolutely remarkable. I think if you wrote this as a movie script, people would say this could never happen in the United States of America.
He's a single, I've said this before, he's the single greatest political athlete I've ever seen. And tonight he proved why. There were moments in the campaign where I thought he said some things and did some things that I didn't quite understand, that I thought maybe detracted from that. But tonight obviously proves that too. He also ran a traditional campaign. He connected with voters on issues. He talked about the things that mattered most to voters. And Democrats said he didn't talk about it in the most full-throated way, he didn't talk about it in the most wholesome way, didn't talk about it in the most comprehensive way, but he connected with voters. I would urge my party tonight, if indeed I think he's almost at 270, we'll declare it here shortly once Alaska comes in. Don't write off the American people. Let us not be critical of people for voting for President Trump. He did something we didn't do in this campaign. We had to reevaluate, reassess. Mr. Wonderful said it a little earlier, that may give us an opportunity as a party to revamp, and perhaps we should think about that. But don't write off the people, the American people, for the decision they made this evening.
Charlie Hurt, he will be the 47th president of the United States after everything that we saw in this election. It's hard to understand how some in the mainstream media are going to take this, because it was so over the top one way that they thought it was done. There was a landslide prediction from a lot in the media that she was going to have the landslide. It looks like he's going to have the landslide tonight.
Yeah, it's truly remarkable. You know, the revolution rolls on, and this is not just you know, a victory for the White House tonight, but also, you know, this is the end of the old Republican Party, which of course Donald Trump took on. That was the first thing that he did. The very first thing that he did in 2015 was take on the old Republican Party. He has completely reshaped the Republican Party. The Republican Party is no longer a, doesn't stand for a lot of the things that it stood for before. He has made it a far more middle class, working class, a far more practical party, a far more, I think probably a far more durable party, and he's figured out how to win with that. And you can't help but think that with this victory, in 4 years from now, he's going to have the mantle that he can hand to the next Republican. So I don't know how Republicans ever go back to the old party that they were. But it is truly extraordinary, and it is all by the force of one guy, one man who had the fortitude, the strength, the vision, the refusal to accept anything, you know, all of the experts counting him out, and he just kept on fighting and fighting and fighting.
Charlie, it would have been one thing for him to come back from a single defeat to be elected again. But when you think about it, he came back from a series of them. I mean, his party lost in the midterm in his term.
2018.
They lost in 2018. They lost the presidential election in 2020, and they had a major disappointment in 2022, which, you know, one might have thought after all that the party wouldn't turn to him again, and yet, you know, in the face of that, plus all the things that Martha enumerated, the indictments, all the other troubles that he had, for him to come back from that is really quite striking.
And think about how toxic he was after, say, January 6th.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at races now in states where Donald Trump very well may drag Republicans, and he's overperforming in a lot of places fellow Republicans.
You know, it really does. I think there are parallels to 1980, Mark Penn. When you look at Jimmy Carter, we had hostages in Iran. We have hostages in Gaza right now. Very high inflation and a malaise in many ways in the country that I think these people who have been called a lot of names have had enough of. What is your impression of what this means tonight?
Well, I think this means a lot to a lot of people. I think the working class are looking for a renewal of American jobs. I think people are looking for a border that is sane and an immigration system that works. I think a lot of people over in the Middle East are looking for Iran to pull back in the face of a president whom they fear. And, you know, look, I think it's going to be incumbent on the Democratic Party to understand that the people have spoken and to dissemble and dismantle this lawfare system that they have built up here, which is going to raise a whole series of questions that are going to have to be answered now. But they cannot say that they are better than Donald Trump and recreate a system that does not recognize that he won and the people have spoken and he is going to be the 47th president.
We haven't talked about foreign policy a lot, but imagine the Saudis, you know, making a normalization deal with Israel in the face of a new president here. Imagine
I'm going there tomorrow night.
Imagine a Ukraine deal that Donald Trump talks about. Kevin O'Leary, what is the market going to do?
They're going to love this. What's happened here is the system self-corrected. When you try and break the American model, it fixes itself. And I think people should give credit within the Democratic Party. Donald Trump saved them tonight, too, because they're going to have to take a spatula to these policies and bring it back to the center over the next 4 years and, in a way, reset. And we talked about this earlier, but he saved entrepreneurship. He saved the entire model of the S&P 500 because taxing 20% higher was a really bad idea, and it self-corrected. Capital, and this is why I'm getting on a plane tomorrow night. I intentionally didn't leave till tomorrow night so I could go to Geneva, go to Abu Dhabi, go to Riyadh, and say it's 21% corporate taxes, 100% not going to change. That is very important for people like me that bring capital back to this country. It fixed itself. It fixed itself. And I think that's why America works. It has worked for 200 years. When it gets too crazy, it fixes itself. And whether you love Trump or you hate him, every Democrat owes him a thank you very much, Mr. President.
By the way, as the markets, the poly market and all these election markets were moving, Bitcoin went up exponentially.
Yes, I'm long Bitcoin.
Are you? So you're buying later.
You know, speaking of Bitcoin, I'm also struck by just calling Pennsylvania here, Dana. Trump embraced Elon Musk in an enormous way. A lot of stories were written that said that he was going to blow it in Pennsylvania, that the people who were working on his outreach teams didn't know what they were doing. He's going to
And he got a lot of criticism. Remember the $1 million giveaway for registered voters? But
for that.
Selena Zito, who's somebody that we follow and we've had on the show many times, and she knows that area very well. She said the people of that region love somebody who is a big thinker, who wants to create jobs, who is like looking into the future, and they can get behind that. And they love somebody who can really lead. And leadership takes courage. And you have to be willing to make decisions where you are going to be criticized. I think this is one of the problems that Kamala Harris has always had. She doesn't want to take a position on anything. We haven't even talked about how in California, the law to basically make shoplifting illegal again passed overwhelmingly. And Gascon, our friend down, the DA in Los Angeles, lost by 22 votes. I mean, this is in California, so it was everywhere.
22 points.
And 2 days before, 22 points, thank you. She wouldn't even take a position on that. 75% of the people in California wanted it gone, and you can't take a position to be with them?
Not only that, you were part of Prop 47, which changed the law the other way when you were in office.
So not wanting to take a position and not being willing to be criticized is a problem if you want to be a leader at that level.
She had that affliction in 2020. Why didn't her own party say, you're not the right candidate? I mean, run a process.
Well, they did. They ran her out of town right before any votes were cast in 2019.
But the same
and then she's
affliction
out of there.
hit her here. The same problem she had in 2020 hit her in 2024.
She's the same person.
I mean, it's not all her fault. They put her in a race that she, well, we now know couldn't win.
Yeah.
But Karen, in fairness to Democrats, there's no doubt. I agree with you on the unrealized capital gains. We shouldn't be taxing that. But we produce more wealth, more innovation, more oil, more cures, more therapeutics over the last 3 years. So I hear you. Democrats are not bad for the economy. Some things she proposed that I'm with you on. But we're a great country, and we're going to continue to be great. And I trust and hope and believe that President
Your party will be great again.
I want the
and you can thank Donald Trump for that.
But he inherited an economy also that was in pretty good shape. I don't want to quarrel about that. All I want is going forward. I agree with you. I want the country to be great, and I hope that both of the parties can work together to try and do that. And I salute President Trump tonight. What a great win, and I agree with you in this regard. My party's got to reimagine and reinvent itself going forward.
Your party needs more of you. Hold on. I wrote about this, the unity and
you did.
Past presidents and past losers and winners and what they said. This is a big speech, Britt, for former President Trump. As he gets ready to deliver this in front of a crowd, he's obviously taken the slings and arrows and everything that's been said, the fascism, all of the things we've talked about tonight. But this moment is actually a moment to reach out.
It's an opportunity if he chooses to do that, but it's also 1:30 in the morning. So you got to wonder how many people are alive to hear.
Oh, they're there. And he's definitely
there. A lot of people are still up.
The question is how much of the national TV audience is.
I bet they're still in.
You know, I think back at the moment in Iowa, at the beginning of this process, Brett, when we were in a town hall with him, bless you, Brett, and he, you know, we asked him about all of this revenge stuff and that he was going to want retribution, and this is what everyone heard. And there were times when he had language that was that matched that, but he said that he wanted success to be his revenge, and that he wanted a successful America. And I would imagine that we're going to hear something along those lines tonight, but we'll see.
Brett, you wrote in your piece, you quoted one of those great old Republican presidents, H.W. Bush, who said that a campaign is a disagreement and an election is a decision, and decisions clear the way for harmony and peace. You know,
but listen, there are a lot of Thanksgiving tables that people are still going to have hard feelings after this election, more than any other election.
I have one of them.
And if you know, passing the Brussels sprouts is not going to be as easy Thanksgiving Day, but this is a chance to move forward, Brett. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that one thing that can happen here, and it happened to Biden, in my view. When Biden was elected, we had every reason to believe that he would be this sort of moderate deal-making guy that he'd been when he was in the Senate. Yes, he's always followed sort of the drift of his party, but he'd worked across the aisle with many senators, had Republican friends and so on. We thought that would probably be the kind of president he was. And then something happened. Trump went to Georgia and made a mess of that Senate, those two Senate races down there. And the Democrats ended up with control of the Senate, at which point old Biden started getting these historical sugar plums dancing in his head and went out for a very aggressive agenda.
Sure, there were articles about FDR. How he was going to be the next FDR.
The next FDR. He was going to out-Obama Obama. Remember that?
Yep.
Well, and that, in my view, that was he would have been, if the Republicans had maintained control of the Senate, first thing that wouldn't have happened was all that wild spending that led to the inflation, or led to a big part of the inflation. And Biden and the country would have been better off because of it. There's always a danger in overreading your mandate. One wonders if Trump will be sober-minded about his.
I think that happened to Biden. Early on, remember, he said he's going to be returned to norms, and then the historians came in and said, no, you could be bigger than FDR. So he says, fine, okay, I'll spend all the money. Then they caused inflation, and now they end up with this result.
Well, he has said that this looks like new President Trump, if he gets to 270, which we expect he will, fairly shortly. Yes, exactly. Has a moment to bring about the unity that people expected after the last election. Of course, we would be kidding ourselves to think that there won't be a tremendous response to this, tremendous backlash in a lot of corners of the country for
So listen, he's going to get there because Alaska is going to be Republican, but we're not done as far as calling states. There could be even more states that go Trump's way. This could be a massive landslide just by what we're looking at in the polls. Fox News Decision Desk can now project, though, Vice President Harris will win Minnesota, and her running mate Tim Walz serves as the state's governor there. That takes it up to 267 to 226. But again, Donald J. Trump will be the 47th president of the United States. More Democracy 24 special coverage next.
If you have generalized myasthenia gravis, picture what life could look like with Vyvgart Hytrulo, a subcutaneous injection that takes about 30 to 90 seconds. For one thing, could it mean more time for you? Vyvgart Hytrulo can improve daily abilities and reduce muscle weakness with a treatment plan that's personalized to you. Do not use Vyvgart Hytrulo if you have a serious allergy to any of its ingredients. It can cause serious allergic reactions like trouble breathing and decrease in blood pressure, leading to fainting and allergic reactions such as rashes, swelling under the skin, shortness of breath, and hives. The most common side effects are respiratory and urinary tract infections, headache, and injection site reactions. It may increase the risk of infusion-related reactions and infection. Tell your doctor if you have a history of infections or symptoms of an infection. Talk to your neurologist about Vyvgart Hytrulo for GMG and picture your life in motion.
I can take the deed to your house and I can transfer that deed into my name.
The crime of title theft. What is that?
What that means is that a criminal, they're able to steal the title to your home, typically by transferring it to another person and then selling or borrowing money against the house. So it could be 6 months later, they start getting foreclosed on. The thing about Home Title Lock is that never has to happen.
Why is that?
They notify you when there's any change to your title, and you're able to, hopefully, catch the thief in the middle of this whole process. And even if the title has been transferred out of your name, Home Title Lock has a restoration team that will come in, fix your title, and place the property back into your name. Title fraud is real, it's scary, but now there's a way to protect yourself.
Give us a call or go to HometitleLock.com and start your triple lock title protection today.
Sunday on Fox. Catch a special Veterans Day pregame show live from Naval Base San Diego. Then it's Niners Bucks. Touchdown! It all kicks off at 11 a.m. Eastern on Fox. Check for the game in your area.
Hey, grab more Delectables. You know, that lickable cat treat.
Delickable Delectables.
Yes, just hurry.
Must be delicious.
Delectables, lickable treat. Deliciously delickable Delectables.
It is a very big night, and they are about to explode at Trump headquarters in West Palm Beach. You see thousands of people waiting, and we are about to hear from the next president of the United States. He will be 45 and 47. And we're waiting for him to join the room, and we'll take you there, obviously, as soon as that gets underway. In the meantime, Grady Trimble is in Michigan. Let's get a quick update just outside of Detroit. Hi, Grady.
Hey, Martha. Yeah, people were getting a little bit tired here, but then the call for Pennsylvania was like a jolt of electricity through this room at the Michigan GOP watch party. And the crowd started chanting USA. They started chanting Trump, 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 as it now appears he will be the 47th president of the United States. Now, in addition to Trump and the call for him in Pennsylvania, they're also excited about the possibility that Michigan could be the state that tips him over that magic 270 number. We're also following a very close Senate race here in Michigan, and they're feeling very confident about that as well. Republican candidate Mike Rogers looks like he could cruise to victory with the help of former President Trump. Democratic candidate Alyssa Slotkin, she went out to her crowd at her watch party at around 12:30 tonight and told them to go home and go to sleep, where here they extended this ballroom venue all through the night if they had to, and now it looks like the crowd is fired up as they await former President Trump taking the stage. Martha, Brett?
Okay, Grady, thank you. It is really important to point out how big the coattails could be tonight. Think about Bernie Moreno in Ohio, was thought dead in the water against Sherrod Brown. He wins. We have right now at this hour, as Grady mentioned, Mike Rogers in Michigan is up. Looks like he is getting closer. We haven't made a call there yet. Hovde in Wisconsin, leading right now. Sam Brown in Nevada is closing in on Jackie Rosen. Wow. We're talking about historic numbers here. If all of these dominoes fall, you're talking about a Senate that could be 54-46, 55-45. That wasn't in the cards. That wasn't on anybody's bingo card when you came into election night.
But these candidates have all fought really strong races, and they have all closed in a very strong way. And in fact, many of them were sort of pulling into +5, +6 in just over the last 3 weeks. So it's a fascinating part of the story. Hopefully we'll be able to call some more of those soon.
Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says with these coattails, you could see the House going Republican as well, and that would be a part of this story as well. Let's go back out to Trace Gallagher on the West Coast with his panel. Hey, Trace.
Brett, thank you. Martha, thank you as well. We've got our panel, Steve Hilton, Jody Armour, Kaylee McGee-White, and Jono Caldwell. You're talking to your panel, Brett and Martha, and we were talking to ours, and Kaylee McGee-White was struck by the whole concept that, again, Trump was undercounted. Kaylee.
This is the third consecutive polling miss in a presidential cycle for Donald Trump, and we really need to be asking ourselves, why do they keep getting it wrong? And at this point, it is a choice. Back in 2016, you could argue that you were blindsided. You didn't expect it. You cannot say that anymore. This was predictable from the very start. And I think the reason they keep getting it wrong is because they still don't understand the average Trump voter. They cannot wrap their heads around why so many people support him. And it's because for a long time, actually for the past decade or so, Democrats in power didn't think they needed to. And even worse, they didn't want to. They didn't want to have to stoop down to understand the concerns over immigration, over the economy. And guess what? The American people sent a very clear message tonight that you better start paying attention, and you better start paying attention soon.
We heard a lot of words, demographic. I don't know how many times we heard it, Steve Hilton, but Gianna, you talk about black voters, black male voters especially. We heard it again and again tonight, and you think it's worth talking about.
I think this is a historic night. Black men will now, those who voted for Trump will be counted as those who helped save America from further decline. I mean, Kamala Harris has tried her best to create these accents like, you better thank a union member, all of these things that she's done to try to appeal to this community, even going on Oprah Winfrey's talk show or whatever that was to say, oh, I'll pull out my gun and shoot someone that tries to come into my house. I mean, this has become nonsensical to the point that I don't know if we're looking at Medea runs for president or not. I mean, this is outstanding what has happened from the black male perspective, and I hope the Republican Party takes note.
Yeah, and you talk about young males and younger voters, Jody Armour. You're a law professor at the University of Southern California. You know what young people are geared into. Are you surprised when you see these voter analysis numbers that young voters came out heavy for Donald Trump?
Yeah, well, young voters can sniff out a fraud. They can sniff out somebody who's chameleon-like. She changes her position according to the prevailing winds. They didn't like that. Many across the country, young students said, for me, a red line also is mass atrocity.